Hey, I'm Sage Plays, and today we're going to be building 5 custom flat rides in Planet Coaster 2 in our little park, Lake Liberty. Let's go! Last week we completed the lake side of the park. You can see it here looking really nice, and today we're going to turn our attention to the amusement side of the park, which is here, by building 5 custom flat rides, all based on real rides to start filling it out. The first ride is called Zero Gravity, and we're going to be spending our first research points to get this one. We need to research tower flat rides in order to get Resurgence, which is the ride that we're going to be customizing. Zero Gravity is a real ride at Belmont Park in San Diego, and Resurgence is the closest ride to it. We're going to place it down just here because when people get to the top of this curve on the coaster, I want them to see zero gravity as they go past. There is a slight difference between the ride we're customizing here and the real one. Ours is about 3 times the size, which means it's going to be a lot more impressive. We just need to recolor it first of all. It's got a really striking red, white and blue color scheme, very American, and we're going to be keeping that color scheme, but then instead of having it as like a framework like it is here, it's going to be solid like the real ride. So we're going to take this aquatic metal piece and we're going to position it exactly so that it doesn't cover up the lights that go up and down the side of the ride and flash on and off in sequence, which looks really cool, but does cover up the actual framework so that we get a nice solid looking ride that matches the real ride without spoiling those lights. Once we've done customizing each ride, we're going to open it and see it in action, and then we'll move on to the next ride until we've got all 5 of them done, and this half of the park is pretty much full. Alright, that's the first metal piece in position. Now we're going to copy it and use the same piece to cover all 4 sides of the ride so we can start to get this completely solid tower into position. One more piece here and then we've got a group, and then we can just take that group, copy this down to the bottom of the tower so it covers the whole thing, and then we can start cloning it and just moving our way up the tower. It's going to be white at the bottom, and then about halfway up it turns to red, so we'll just take everything that we've built, copy it up here, quick color change, and now the top of the tower is red, and we'll just keep copying it until we get to the very top. I like how we've got these exposed mechanics at the top. That's not what you see in the real ride, so that'll be covered up in a minute. There's also a red stripe that goes up the white part of the ride on all 4 corners, so we'll use this flume support to make that. We'll use the snap distance option to do this. It is so useful. We'll set that to 2 meters, and because this flume support is 2 meters long, we can automatically copy it all the way up to the top here without having to spend any time lining it up, and then we can just copy that over to the other side until we've got all 4 parts of it covered up, and then we can move on to the top of the tower. The top of the tower features a round blue cap with a white star and lights on it, so we're going to use a scaling tool to get this planter to the right size, so it's got a really nice shape. We'll move that into the center and make sure it completely covers the top of the tower, and then we can clone this above itself. Once we've got the right color in, there we go, and we'll just clone this until we get the height that we want, and then we'll flip the top one round so that we've got a top that doesn't feature soil because it was a planter. There we go. Once we've got that in there, then we can start putting the star design on. Helpfully the game has a big star in it, so we can just do that, change the color, and then we'll use this circular wall sign to get the rest of the design in. And then we'll get on to a sign for the ride. So something I've been doing a lot in this game already is using a sign to get the shape that I want, and then using null signs to actually put the text in. It gives you a lot more flexibility. We can have the word gravity in one font really big, and then we can have a 0 in a different font that looks really cool. Put that on it as well. Change the colors, a few flames. We've got a really nice sign for the ride. We'll also cover up some of these curbs with some more wall signs that will change to red, and that'll just sit everything together really nicely. And then finally, we just need to add some lights to the top of it. So we're going to bury one of the light bulb pieces in here. So we've just got one of the lights sticking out. And then we can use the symmetry tool, which is one of the best things in the game, to start putting everything that we do on 4 different sides of this circle. I don't think circles have sides, but you know what I mean. So we can get this done really quickly and really accurately. And with the lights on, that means that zero gravity is complete already. So we can open the ride now, and let's check it out. Here we go. It is a long way to the top on this ride, and I've got a feeling it is going to be a long way down. The view from the top is going to be pretty spectacular once we've got the rest of the park in, and there's not much time to enjoy it. Not a bad start. I think the ride looks cooler than it rides though. The next ride is going to be a lot more exciting. The next ride is also a real ride based on one at Belmont Park. It is called Beach Blaster, and we're going to be using the Iron Claw to make it. This ride is so cool, I think it's going to feature in pretty much all of my parks going forward. So we'll place this down and get a queue path in, and then we'll start customizing it. It's going to be another red, white and blue ride. They're obviously big on patriotic colours at Belmont Park, but they look really cool and it looks really cohesive with the zero gravity behind it. Lake Liberty is an American park, so I'm quite happy to have this colour scheme everywhere. If it looks good in Belmont Park, it should look good at Lake Liberty. And one of the things I liked about this ride is it's got this painted sort of mural on the wall of the beach with sea and sky and some birds. So we're going to recreate this here. So we're going to use some of the divided plaster pieces to make this, and then we're going to get creative. So we're going to make some clouds using the moss decals. We'll just change those to white, scale them up, position them on the wall, and then by cloning them and repositioning them, we can get some nice fluffy white clouds going on. Just move this a little bit so it starts to look realistic. There we go. We'll get a few more clouds on, and then we're going to make some birds. So we'll just take a null sign, put the letter L in, choose a nice kind of wiggly font, and then shrink this down, spin it round, and we can get this looking like the wings of a gull. Once we've got one of them in, then we'll just copy that and rotate it for the other wing. And then I think the black's a little bit dark, so we'll recolor that to more of a dark blue so it sits in more nicely with the rest of the artwork here. And then we'll just make a few variations of this and turn it into a wall that goes onto one side of the Beach Blaster. And then we'll make a sign. I actually changed the name of the ride just to Beach Blast because I couldn't fit the full words on the sign. Really simple build, but it's such a cool ride. Let's open it and check it out. This ride doesn't just swing the guests from left to right. Once it gets going, it rotates at the top of each axis as well, which is really cool. I'm really happy with that beach mural in the background as well. I'm not sure we've even done anything like that in Planet Zoo before, let alone Planet Coaster 2. The ride's almost ready to start rotating, so let's check it out. The music is the actual music on the ride. I love how you can choose a little theme tune for each ride in the game. Even though this is only the second ride, you can already see zero gravity in the background, which looks really cool. We do have a carousel. We put it in episode 1. It does not look great. That'll be improved by the end of this episode, although I'll skip that. We're going to move straight on to ride number 3. The third ride is probably the most classic theme park ride, a Ferris Wheel. So we need to do some more research for this. We need to research the special flat ride, which is bumper cars, and then we can move on to the wheel flat rides and get ourselves the big wheel, which is what they call the Ferris Wheel. And we're going to be basing ours on the Ferris Wheel at Lake Compounce, which is the other main park that we're getting our implements from. And this one is going to be super simple because it's practically identical to the one at Lake Compounce. All we need to do is recolor it into this gorgeous red and black color scheme that they have there. There's lights all over the big wheel, so it's going to look really good at night. That is something I want to concentrate on in the park a little later on down the line. We're going to cover up the Planet Coaster logo by using one of the round signs, getting it to the correct color to meld in with everything else, and then just using one of the null signs again to get the park's name onto the sign. Once we've done that, we're just going to put some beautiful white railings around it, and we've already got an amazing looking Ferris wheel. Let's take a look at it. It's such a timeless sight, the Ferris wheel. I've positioned it exactly behind the carousel, so in effect you've got two weenies as you walk into the park. Should be a really impressive sight. Let's move on to ride number 4, and we're going to get really crazy with the customization on this one. This ride is called the Tilt-A-Whirl at Belmont Park. It's what in England we call a waltzer. It's called the Hyperspin in Planet Coaster, and it's a really cool ride. There's one major problem with it. The ride that we're building is themed around ice cream cones, and the ride in the game is themed around American football. So we need to turn these American football helmets into ice cream cones, which is going to be quite a job. But luckily, the symmetry tools are going to make that much easier than it would be otherwise. So what we're going to do is start with the bottom part of the helmet and start turning this into an ice cream cone. So we're going to use these gutter pieces to build a lattice work into the plaster piece that I've placed in there. And we'll start copying these around until we've got one little section that starts to look like an ice cream cone. And then once we've got one section done, with the symmetry tools turned on, we can copy this over a little bit and then rotate it into place. And if we keep doing that, we end up with an ice cream cone that wraps around the bottom of the helmet, covers it all up, and starts to begin to look quite good, but there's a lot more work to do. So we're going to make the rim of the cone here using some of the full stops from the 3D fonts. We'll move this up into place, get it to the right size so that it projects out the amount that we want and melds in nicely with the parts of the helmet that are already there. And then again, with the symmetry tool turned on, we can start rotating each one of these pieces. We'll do it by hand, but we only need to get halfway around, because once we get to the middle, it will meet up with the copied symmetry pieces and we'll have a complete cone. Then we just need to color the top of the helmet white to start getting that sort of ice creamy kind of vibe in. And then we're going to build the literal cherry on top by recoloring and resizing this brain coral. And we just place this on top of the helmet. And there we go, we've got an ice cream cone. Add some more ice cream into the center of the ride, and it's ready to open. I apologise for the music, this is not really my jam, but this is the music I thought was most appropriate for this ride, considering the target audience. And I'm so happy with how the ice cream cones look. This is one of the things I was most excited about with Planet Coaster 2, the ability to actually theme the rides themselves, rather than just building stuff around them, and it works really nicely. Onto the final ride, Unicorn Teacups. You can't have a theme park without teacups somewhere. And this ride is going to be the first one we've pretty much designed ourselves rather than basing on a real ride. Didn't have any good teacups examples in the couple of parks that I was looking at. So we're going to go with something to appeal to the target audience of the ride, unicorns. So we've got this Pegasus statue, and we're going to dye it pink, of course. And then we're going to make a little unicorn horn using an inflatable ring holder. What else? We'll scale this down to the right size and get it into position. We'll give it a sort of goldy kind of yellow color. And then we just need to get this poking out of Pegasus's forehead. He's quite a chubby little Pegasus, this guy. Not the most graceful of unicorns, but this is the horse statue that we have to work with. And then we'll just clone this and make it a little larger so we can get a base to the horn and give it more of the sort of texture that you'd expect to see. And then we'll recolor the ride and get even more pink in there, and then we'll build a sign. So going to use a lot of cloud motifs with this and all around the ride. We'll call it Unicorn Teacups. Again, we'll use the sign for the shape and then the null signs for the text. It's so good having a big list of fonts to choose from rather than the paltry selection that you get in Planet Zoo, and I assume you got in the original Planet Coaster. We're going to put some clouds onto the big sign at the back here, just to start sitting this in with the theming that we're going for. The rest of the ride, there's going to be some big freestanding clouds on the sides of the ride as well. We'll put a base in, get this to the right colour, just use the top of this really, just to make it look more like the sign would actually stand up. So we copy this across here, we'll put it at the back, and then we'll have one more in the middle as well. And that's the ride completed. I haven't really shown you the pathing so far, so just to show you how we're doing this, we've got red paths running from each ride to the next, just using the draw tool mainly to get some good shapes in there. Don't want any sort of square paths or anything like that. If you're enjoying this, by the way, don't forget to hit the like button, and if you haven't already, subscribe so you can see the building of the rest of Lake Liberty. And that is the final ride completed. Let's check it out. I've gone for some stirring orchestral music for this ride, mainly because it amused me to have such ridiculously overblown orchestral music on a teacups ride. I think it's kind of majestic myself. We'll take a look at all 5 rides in a second, but let's just enjoy the teacups for a moment. And that's the final build. Let's take a look at what Lake Liberty looks like now. We've got all 5 new rides in. Zero Gravity is already making its presence felt. You can see it behind the Giant Dipper here. And here's the rest of the park. I wanted a really chaotic feel here, which is sort of what I get from Belmont Park. There are so many rides all crammed together. I've had to leave a little bit more space because this is Planet Coaster 2 rather than real life, so the people have got room to move around. But it's looking very full, and the view from the lake is much busier now. A lot more going on in the background, which I really like. In the next episode, we're going to move to the other side of the amusements, and I think we're going to build a big modern coaster in there. Might be a couple of weeks before the next episode because I'm going on holiday, but I will see you then. Thank you so much for watching as always. Bye.